Good afternoon. I'm Victor Schaffner, Director of Communications and Advocacy with the University of Delaware's Center for Disabilities Studies, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Lunchtime Learning Zoom webinar, Where to Park, a look at how and where Delaware state parks are becoming more accessible. Thank you for joining us. For the Lunchtime Learning event we held last September, the accessibility chief for the National Park Service showed us how it was making its facilities around the country more accommodating to people with disabilities. Today, Matthew Ritter, Environmental Program Administrator for Planning, Preservation, and Development with Delaware's Division of Parks and Recreation, will take us on a tour of first state parks and efforts to make them accessible. After the completion of Matthew's presentation, there should be time for him to answer several questions. If you wish to submit a question, you can do so in Zoom's chat field by typing or by using speech-to-text dictation. I will then pose some questions in the time we have remaining to Matthew. Today's event is being live captioned. In the coming days, we expect to load a captioned video of the event to our website. Lastly, at the conclusion of today's Lunchtime Learning session, we will email you a brief survey that asks a few questions about the webinar. We ask that you complete it and send it back to us this afternoon. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. And with that, I'll turn things over to Matthew.
Thank you, Victor. Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me today. I'm going to share my screen. Victor, does it look good for you?
It does.
Excellent. So as Victor said, my name is Matthew Ritter with the Division of Parks and Recreation, which is a part of the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about accessibility throughout our parks. But I also want to share a few other things. We want to talk about the vision for our park visitors, our process in which we determine our projects, what capital projects we tackle, some of the biggest hurdles and challenges we see, a snapshot of where we are today. It'll be almost like my own personal guide to you visiting some of our parks throughout the state. A project we're doing called Project 75 in our strategic plan. Some exciting new efforts that we're doing, and then how we can help city and county parks through a grant program we have, and then finally how you can help us to continuously improve. I want to be clear, I am not a professional in accessibility. We rely heavily on the professionals that we have around us, partnerships that we create, and we're always excited to learn more things about how we can provide a better service for our visitors. I wanted to share our mission and some principles of operation with you. Our mission is pretty broad, but what it comes down to is we want to provide safe and enjoyable recreational opportunities, show responsible stewardship to our resources, and resource-based interpretation and educational services. We feel strongly within the division that it is critical that we build our next generation of stewards. And I think we can only do that through introducing people, our visitors, to the outdoors, to our resources, educating them in one form or another, having them connect personally to the resource, and build an understanding and appreciation. Through that understanding and appreciation, it builds the respect needed to create that stewardship for our land. Within the mission, we have principles of operation. We have a commitment to our customers, employees, future generations, and to work cooperatively with others. We cannot do this by ourselves, and we're aware of that. In this presentation, you're going to see a little bit of a focus on the first one, the customer, as well as the cooperative efforts we work with other state agencies, nonprofits, or even public-private partnerships. Within the commitment to our customers, it even says specifically that the state parks and preserves, that our goal is to make them accessible and affordable to all. So that is primary to our function, and all of our staff feel strongly in making that connection. Now, if we have time at the end, we're going to play a video for you, but if not, it's available on our website. We're proud to be a two-time winner of the NRPA Gold Medal Award. NRPA is the National Recreation and Parks Association Gold Medal. It's one gold medal that's given out for what's ranked as the best state park system in the US. And we're proud two-time winner of that gold medal. The only other state to have won it more than once is Florida. So we're very excited, and we believe our work throughout the state has really given us that opportunity to win that award. Now, I wanted to briefly talk about our process. We have a lot of benefits of being a small state. You look at places like California or some of the larger Texas, they literally have to fly to different locations to see all their state parks. Because of our size, we're able to accomplish things that not a lot of other parks can do. We have a safety inspection team that actually goes around to each park, evaluates the park infrastructure for safety, but also reviews the accessible components of it to ensure we're doing what we need to do. We have a group of planners that meets with the staff, the friends groups, and all elements of our staff, just not leadership. It's a variety: maintenance, rangers, interpreters, volunteer managers. Every aspect of our park are present at these priority plan meetings to really work up what our future steps are to improve our park system. This all goes into creating a capital list that allows us to see the big picture of our state needs. It's just not what's on the top of our minds or what gets the most attention. It really evaluates every project we have and then prioritizes them based off of a ranking of safety, recreational amenities, natural cultural resource, and even accessibility plays into those rankings. We create this capital booklet, which there's an image on the screen you can see. That allows us to share our funding resources, our project needs, what we've accomplished this past year, what we plan to accomplish. It's a great resource for our friends groups, our legislators, and others that are interested to see where we are and what we can do if the funding's available, and where everything lays within that realm of importance. Now, like anything, if you talk about challenges and hurdles with accessibility, I think the first thing that comes to mind is always money. And that's true. To make things accessible, it typically becomes a financial challenge. It's always easier when you're building new. The challenge that we have is our Delaware State Park system has more historical structures than any other agency in the state. And to make those historic structures accessible becomes a challenge. Sometimes it's a matter of you can't without changing the historic fabric altogether. But sometimes it's just a challenge in what you need to accomplish. So a good example, Fort Delaware is the bottom left picture. Great fort. It's on Pea Patch Island in Delaware City. Right now, you can take a ferry, fully accessible. You can take a ferry. We have a jitney, which is a shuttle to the island. We're in the process of a major construction, 4.5 million to add a pavilion to the site, an accessible trail to an accessible viewing platform for the heronry. But it's really challenging to get people, once they're in the fort, it's challenging to get them to the third floor, where we need elevators, and to work that within this system becomes a real hurdle for us to manage. Another example is the tower on the right side. That's Tower 3. So in situations where we have difficulty really sharing the full experience for all abilities, we need to be proactive and think creatively on the use of live cameras. Maybe it's waysides, QR codes, virtual reality, whatever we can do to really share that experience as much as possible. Historical components are the real challenge in a lot of our accessibility. And even the things that you don't think are historic, they're many times built before code, or the code has changed. So we need to adjust and adapt those. And that can be a difficult manner as we go through all of our projects. So I wanted to take you through a tour. We're going to go through the strategic plan and a few other things, but I thought it'd be beneficial to take you through a tour of our parks. I'm not going to hit all of them, but just a highlight of what I see as the accessible highlights throughout the system. And I wanted to start at Auburn Valley State Park. Auburn Valley is up at Yorkland. or the Hockessin area. The gentleman on the bottom left is Tom Marshall. Unfortunately, he passed away a little over a year ago, but what he has left in a legacy is amazing. Tom was a collector of steam cars. Right now, it's one of the largest collections of steam cars on the East Coast. He also had a beautiful house that we call the Marshall Mansion. He actually gifted the mansion and an endowment to take care of the property to the state because he wanted to ensure that his story and the stories that he grew up with are continue to be told. Now, the beauty, and this goes back to cooperation and working with partnerships, the beauty is there's a Friends of Auburn Heights, which manages and owns these steam cars. They partner with the state, and in the top right picture, that Marshall Steam Museum, this site did not have accessible bathrooms. So whenever we had an event, we had to bring in portable toilets. This group on their own knew the importance of that accessibility, the importance of this story. And they decided to fundraise over $1 million to build this addition, accessible ramp, and accessible bathrooms. So that's the partnership where the state isn't coming up with this money. A lot of times it's our friends, our partnerships, grants, that is making this happen and opening the door to people of all abilities to enjoy these great resources that we share the responsibility of telling the stories of. While you're at Auburn Valley, one of the neat things is the history behind the location. Used to be historically, it was a fiber mill area, a lot of pollutants. The red clay creek that runs through there would flood historically. There was a lot of contaminants in the ground. Through work with multiple agencies, private partnerships, that area was cleaned up. The contaminants were removed, and wetlands were created. With those wetlands and all that work, the Red Clay Creek is now a healthy creek again, and they're actually stocking trout, which is a huge success story. The interesting part is we are also building historic bridges. One's actually being constructed as we speak. In the end, there will be 3 historic bridges and an amazing trail system that connects them all. So it's a great opportunity now to explore the park, and it's even going to get better as years go on. Alapocus and Wilmington State Parks, I group together. They're the same management group, and they're around the same area. So the first slide will be Alapocus, next will be Wilmington. If you haven't been up in this area, I'd recommend going and doing just that, exploring this wonderful area. We have the Delaware Greenway Trail. To the left is Blue Ball Barn, beautiful historic dairy barn that was completed and made into a LEED facility that is fully accessible, great place for meetings, events, weddings. We have wonderful programming there. We have Delaware Brew Story, which is a very popular one. And then next to it is the Can Do Playground, which recently won an award for an accessible playground. In addition to that accessible playground, we have a great trail that was just added this last year with a storybook. So it's a storybook trail that circles the property. Another wonderful stopover if you're up in that area. Moving to Wilmington. Wilmington's a great park system that is within the city. It's interesting because it's actually owned by the city of Wilmington. Most of it's owned by the city, but the division manages the property. If you haven't been to Brandywine Park that runs along Brandywine Creek, I highly recommend it. We have the Josephine Fountain. This year, it's a little late in the season probably now, but the cherry blossoms blooming is the most beautiful thing you'll ever see. We have the beautiful rose garden, the Brandywine Zoo, which we manage, swinging bridge, a ton of sculptures and memorials. Really a great experience for anyone that just wants to explore the city. It's in the heart of the city, but it's this beautiful green space with a lot of amenities that you can really enjoy on a regular basis. The Friends Group, talking about cooperation again, the Friends Group are presently fundraising for what we're calling a legacy trail. There's a trail system that circles this property. This is going to be bulked up with a new zoo entrance, which we'll talk about. Great addition of signage. Another great addition to our cooperative way of thinking and working together to solve problems. Brandywine Creek State Park is a small park in relation to some of our others, but it is a beautiful one to visit. What I like about Brandywine Creek is you can go up to what we call the Hawk Watch area. And right there, you can stay in your car, but you can take a short little trail and you're at the top of the hill. It's called Hawk Watch because of just that. It's a great way to look at birds of prey while they're migrating through. But the other thing I wanted to point out is what you see in these images. This is the 40th year that the parks have partnered to provide the annual Special Needs Fishing Derby. Beautiful event. We're looking to make some upgrades to the area to allow for improved parking and improved trails down to this creek, but just a great event that's been going on for 40 years now. The Brandywine Zoo I mentioned briefly with the Wilmington State Parks. I think this is one of the sites I'm most excited about. If you've been to the zoo over 5+ years ago, you need to come back and visit. We've done so much work and it's really impressive the successes that we've seen at this site. Again, we work with the Delaware Zoological Society through the support of our legislators and some of our additional funding opportunities. We're able to build what you see in that right-hand side, the Madagascar exhibit. The Madagascar exhibit includes radiated tortoises. It includes lemurs. And the beautiful thing about this facility you see, it's open on all sides. One side is glass, which shows right into the exhibit. Those lemurs are trained through enrichment projects to actually stay near the glass at times. We have a feeding tube, so our keepers can do programs right there. Great place for events, parties, get-togethers, or when we're not doing that, just the public to come and enjoy the site. We also have an accessible pathway up to our bald eagles. Just a beautiful, beautiful, again, beautiful zoo within the heart of the city. The left is an image, a rendering of the entrance to the Brandywine Zoo. We're excited this year. We have some challenges. I mean, if you look at the location itself, it is accessible, but it's not the easiest. And we want to improve that. We want to expand it as well. And this is a beautiful addition that we're looking to do in the next few years, where we're going to add flamingos and a few other species of interest, but you'll actually be able to go inside where the flamingos are and potentially even feed them through additional programming, which will be exciting for our visitors to take advantage of. Beyond the zoo itself, which is a draw, from an accessibility standpoint, I love what the zoo has done, the staff has done to create special moments and opportunities for their visitors. We have a traveling zoo program that allows our animals to go out to sites. So it can go to schools, organizations, parties, whatever it is, they can bring these certain animals out to enjoy. So you can enjoy that in the comfort of your own location versus having to bring everybody to the zoo. In addition, they have expanded their programming for specialty programs like Dream Night for the hospitals, programming for families at AI DuPont, where they literally will take certain animals into the hospital. And then they started a special sensory hour where people that have heightened sensory or heightened sensitivity are allowed to come early on certain days throughout the summer. So it's a quieter, more comfortable setting to visit the zoo. We're excited to continue to do those kind of projects and even expand them whenever possible. And a lot of this was just done by the staff's desire to expand the outreach to people of all abilities. Going down to the beach, everybody loves the beach, but it does come with challenges. What I'm showing you here is Cape Henlopen, same as Delaware Seashore, where we have mobility mats at several locations, the use of beach wheelchairs, which makes beach visits a lot more easy, but it's still not easy. That thing is hard to push if you ever had to push one. The exciting thing about this, we have a number of crossings. Mobility mats are challenging to manage. There's a cost associated with them. But we had some volunteers that were really committed to extending the mobility mats at Gordon's Pond, which is part of Cape Henlopen. And through a special program that the staff has developed, we now provide sponsorship opportunities where an organization or individuals can sponsor a mobility mat, get their logo on there, and that has expanded the number of crossings that we offer mobility mats on immensely. So we're excited to continue that and extend that throughout our beach parks. Still at Cape, we got a lot going on at Cape. The top image is of the Biden Environmental Education Center. We're hopeful to receive the final funding for that this year, and the project would begin construction this summer and the fall. That Environmental Education Center are hotel-style rooms that will allow for meetings, events, outdoor education, all in a fully accessible building. This is named after our president, President Biden, but unfortunately years ago, due to challenges with accessibility, we actually had to close that facility down. We're excited to be able to renovate the entire thing and open it back up. It's a great resource, not only for the area around Sussex County, but for the whole state. Like I said, we're a small state, so to travel down to the beach and enjoy an overnight accommodation and have your meetings and workshops and sessions there is just a great opportunity for the whole state to enjoy. We also have cottages right at the park, and of course the Gordon's Pond Trail, which draws a lot of attention. If you haven't been to Gordon's Pond, you can take it from Lewis or the Cape May Ferry through the park, get on the trail that runs through our marshes, goes over to Rehoboth, and then jumps on the Junction Breakwater Trail, and you circle right back. Great amenity. We've seen a huge increase in the Cape May Ferry walk-ons with bikes once that opened up, and we're glad that it's been so successful and popular. Also at Cape, and this is like the best kept secret if you haven't really paid super attention, whenever you see a dune within the park, there's a good chance there's a historic structure under there. The Army operated Fort Miles out of Cape Henlopen, and we're doing our best to share that resource, that cultural resource with our visitor. So excited about this. When I mentioned the challenges with historic structures, this is a success story. We have a group called the Fort Miles Historical Association that also has an internal working group called the Bunker Busters. The Bunker Busters, it's a bunker, it's a clever name. That Bunker Buster group brings in anywhere from 15 to 25 volunteers Thursdays and Fridays to work on our historic structures. In this one, this was not an accessible museum. It wasn't an accessible battery. It's battery 519. They were able to create ramps where there were steps, remove barriers, open up the entire thing, and even create exhibits with the help of our park staff and manage this site to be an active museum. Today, you can park down the hill, take an accessible trail through our gun park, enter that northwest entrance that you see on the bottom left of the screen, travel a couple hundred yards underneath that dune through our battery, and just learn so much about the history of this site. The other great component of this, on the ocean side, the top right picture, you can see our FMHA, Fort Miles Historic Association friends, have fundraised and worked with parks to create an event space. So the park now has an amazing event space that we can rent out to weddings that has probably one of the best views in Delaware, if you ask me. Another great partnership, and all of this is accessible to all abilities, which is exciting for us to offer. Going to Delaware Seashore, same amenities with mobility mats and chairs, but I wanted to highlight a few other elements. Top right, you have the cottages. We have 12 great cottages that are right along the inlet. You have a nice trail that leads to Hammerheads, which if you want to just go and grab a bite to eat or walk around the marina. The bottom right, we have Big Chill Beach Club. Again, this is a great partnership. We have a concession stand that we were contracting out. When it was time to put that out to bid, we opened the door to other ideas, and Levita came to us, a Delaware business, and they approached us with the idea of not only running the concession stand, but commit the resources to fund the restaurant that is built on top of the concession stand and our bathhouse. Now you can go and enjoy a beautiful a restaurant, a beautiful meal that one side is the ocean, one is the inlet, and the other is the bridge in the bay. Just a beautiful setting for events or just a night out. They've also become great partners for a lot of our events that we host throughout the parks. Now, we do have 2 campgrounds down at Delaware Seashore, and the challenge there is we don't allow campfires because of the wind and the marsh grasses, but we created these community campfire rings. That's my wife and daughter in the picture there roasting marshmallows. They get sucked into a lot of photos. Uh, this is another great amenity that was added that is accessible. So even when we have events, special events, and we want to do a campfire, we know that having something on the beach can be a challenge for our visitors. This is a great one that's still a great view of the inlet, wonderful setup, and people can enjoy the smell of the campfire, the marshmallows, something that, is iconic for I would say camping in general, but I think state parks as a whole. Staying down south, we have Holts Landing. The bottom left is a trail that goes through our marsh. It's an elevated boardwalk. And I wanted to take a moment and talk through our approach on trails. As we do our master trail plans, we're evaluating the number of trails that are accessible versus not accessible. There's a balance that needs to be had. There are mountain bikers, there are trail users that are looking for that rugged terrain, obstacles to work around. But the division also feels strongly that we need to have a hub of a trail system that is fully accessible. And each park has certain areas that we find to be the essential experience, that critical experience we want you to have when you're visiting our park. So what you're going to start seeing more and more of is each park is going to have an accessible trail that leads to that experience. What you're seeing is a Seahawk trail, goes out in the marsh again. The Friends Group are presently trying to fundraise for a platform, a wildlife viewing platform that would be accessible. And then to the right is our fishing pier, fishing and crabbing pier for those who want to try that experience out while visiting Holts Landing. Attached to Holts, we also have Assawoman Canal. The Assawoman Canal runs a few miles, and there's a great trail that is pretty heavily utilized that we built. We're about to do a phase 3 of that trail. But what we noticed is a lot of people wanted to kayak that canal because it was a safe haven from the wind. But it's a drop off into that canal. So we found a nice lagoon that we own property near, and we created this accessible access point with a little bit of an ease to launch your kayaks. An accessible kayak launch is what it's referred to, but it's a great area that you can step down or lower yourself into your kayak with handholds along the way, and much easier to manage. Honestly, getting in and out of a kayak in general is not the easiest. This helps everybody involved, and we were excited to add this to the canal, and we're starting to see more and more opportunities where we can add this type of ramp to our other facilities. Kilns Pond is typically known for our water park. We have a great little water park in Kent County with 0 grade entrance, which is amazing for the main pool. But we also have a kiddie area that also has 0 grade entrance. So it's great for all abilities. But this year we were super excited, a little over a year ago now, to add this elevated boardwalk. If you're familiar with the park and the Pondside Trail, there's a section about 800 feet that you're walking along Kilns Pond Road on the shoulder. And even though it was a wide shoulder, you never felt comfortable or good about it. This elevated boardwalk runs 860 feet over the water with bump outs for fishing or just wildlife viewing or just taking a break. Goes around the spillway. It's a great amenity to the park and a beautiful resource to have. It's just down the hill from our Kilns Pond Nature Center, which is a great amenity also for any visitors that want to check out the Nature Center, our live reptiles, or if you're there just for an event. Lums Pond, I'm going to move into what we have a little bit and versus what we're getting. Lums Pond has an amazing campground that's very popular. And what we've realized is the popularity is so immense that there was need for additional amenities or additional opportunities for overnight stays. We know that there's a group that loves tent camping, a group that loves to use cabin or RVs, but there's also a group that loves cabins. We're excited this year, depending on funding, to potentially break ground on the creation of anywhere from 6 to 12 or up to 14 potentially 2 and 3 bedroom cabins that are going to be situated along the pond's edge. So 6 of them will have a view straight of the pond, and a few others will be a little set further back, but they'll have a great view as well. They will not all be accessible, but there are a good bit that will be accessible for our users. All of them internally will be primarily accessible. It's just the approach that may alter that a little bit. But we're excited to add these elements to the park, and I think a very popular addition in the years to come. Another one that's coming soon and that I'm excited about, Trap Pond State Park has great amenities I'll share on the next slide. But the one thing in Western Sussex is that there's a lack of water features. There's a lack of areas that the community can cool down, whether it's pools or water parks or slides, whatever the case is. We're excited at the opportunity to add a splash park within Trap Pond. This is a fully accessible experience. It'd be a great addition to the park, great addition to Western Sussex, and really this state. Trap Pond has a great campground as well, so I'm sure this will be heavily used, and we're just excited to add this to the park and hopefully the next couple of years. While at Trap Pond, we have what we call the Bob Trail. It's named after Senator Venables, who was gracious enough to do a good bit of the funding of some of our upgrades at Trap Pond. This Bob Trail is 4.5 miles. Again, it has elements that take, the trail takes you off the road, which has been a great addition. It's a fully accessible trail, wonderful trail to really enjoy in the park. Multiple elevated sections over the water or over marshes. Just a great experience. And then on the top right, you can see a couple gentlemen fishing. That is another accessible kayak launch, great addition to the park. We continue to look for opportunities within our parks, especially our campground parks, that we can expand our services to continue to offer that to our visitors on a regular basis. White Clay Creek is to me, one of the more interesting stories. I mentioned earlier when we talked about trails, the need for that hub, that accessible hub that really can tell the story of the park or have people really experience what the park's about. For White Clay Creek, this was the Tri-Valley Trail, and you can see the ribbon cutting and the trail in a couple of those pictures. We had a lot of discussions about the width of this trail, whether it was crushed stone or whether it was paved. The division felt strongly that the popularity and the use of this trail, we would need to go wider and we would need to have it paved. And I think it was one of the best decisions we made. The interesting thing is what happened after that. As I mentioned, this park, our park staff are dedicated to connecting people to the resources. Once this trail was built, the staff specifically worked with their friends groups, grants with REI, and they created multiple different amenities within this area that are now accessible. So for a visitor of the park in this area, the 9-foot road area, you'll be able to enjoy the Tri-Valley Trail. We bought, and you can see an image of it, hay rides that have lifts. So you'll be able to take a hay ride. Our staff has built an accessible trail and installed a dock to a stocked pond. You can enjoy fishing. And then of course, there's a primitive camping area that also has accessible pathways to the picnic area, the fire pit, and an elevated platform for tent camping as well. So now a group can come of varying abilities and enjoy a hay ride, enjoy going down and fishing in a stocked pond, go for a hike or a ride on the Tri-Valley Trail, and spend the night there in our primitive camping area. Just a very special area within the park that was primarily driven by the desire of our staff to connect people to the resources. Now, I mentioned earlier, talking about a little bit of our planning and our strategic plan. Just like at White Clay, we wanted a plan to be put together that really shares what our staff feel our biggest needs are. A lot of times when you go through planning processes, it can be whoever talks the loudest, or depending on the positions, We wanted this strategic plan to be driven by our staff. So we sought out to do just that. We brought in groups from all aspects of the field, every position. We had surveys. And though there are a number of goals and objectives, the ones that I wanted to share that are specific to accessibility are listed here. There was a goal to provide high quality, safe, inclusive, and accessible recreational experiences through the careful alignment of the opportunities available with our landscape, our resources that are unique to our parks. Going back to that essential experience, we've identified what the essential experience in each park is, and we want to make sure that people of all abilities can reach that location, can hear that story, that can connect to those resources. Again, we feel if we can connect our visitors to the resources and build that understanding and appreciation, they will become our stewards and they will support the next generation of park users or the next generation of staff that are working to support these parks. In addition, the state parks have been pretty active in the Children in Nature initiative. That's just connecting children to the outdoors. We want to continue to provide and promote programs that engage people of all abilities, and that's through the planning of trails, interpretation, recreational amenities that connect the public to each park's essential experience, which I just mentioned. And then finally, broadening the inclusive programming for diverse audiences. I mentioned some of the great work that the zoo is doing. There's nothing that keeps us from doing that in other parks. And we're excited that we're taking those on. Every year, pre-COVID, we were doing a governor's campout. And one of the great things that we did a few years ago is we partnered with the School of the Deaf and offered the camp out to that school. Great experience, not only for that school, it was an amazing experience for our staff, a great learning opportunity. We want to continue to do more of that and push the envelope to make sure we're connecting everybody to our resources. Now, within the strategic plan, we've also identified what we call Project 75. It's not that clever. There was actually a Project 70 in our history. I just stole the name a little bit. In 2026, we will be celebrating our 75th anniversary. So within our strategic plan, which ends with our 75th anniversary, we wanted to identify goals that we want to accomplish the next 5 years, now 4 years. And they're listed there a little small. I'm going to read through a few of them so you don't have to struggle to read them. 75,000 trees planted in parks. That's part of the Tree for Every Delawarean initiative that we have going on. 750 acres of new park land, conservation easements, or nature preserves protected. The next two are critical for accessibility: 75 new and improved campsites, cabins, cottages, and yurts. And then 75 new accessible amenities, including boat ramps, hunting stands, hay wagons, pavilions, campsites. We want to find ways to connect to the resources, and we're going to utilize our friends, our staff, our connections to really identify how we can do that. 7.5 million in grants and partnership funding to support free park-based field trips, community recreational improvements, and cultural natural resource stewardship. I'm going to talk a little bit about that grant opportunity later. That's actually available to cities and counties. 75,000 in internship support, and then 7.5 million annual investment to address capital backlog and improvements. I can tell you our biggest need in improvements is typically around our restrooms, and that connects greatly to accessibility. So there's a great amount of work we can do, and putting that investment towards those improvements will be a big step in connecting people to the resources by taking care of the essential components needed to take care of themselves. Some exciting projects that we're looking at and expanding our knowledge of is through our waysides. So an example you can see on the screen is a new wayside we're developing that we haven't done before. Typically our waysides or our interpretive signage that are along trails are just that. They're interpretive components, images, text, and not much beyond that. We realize that doesn't work anymore, and it probably hasn't worked for a long time. So we're looking to make improvements with the addition of QR codes that'll take you to a website to learn more about information. It might have audio connected to it. This one will have Braille, and then also some tactile components as well. So when we're talking about the different types of grasses you'll have a tactile component to it that can kind of give you a sense through feel of what those grasses would be like. We have a lot more to learn and a lot more to do with this in this area, but we're excited to start tackling those projects. As I mentioned, we're also increasing the number of accessible trails through our system. Every trail, every park will have an accessible trail that really leads to that essential experience or that great overlook. We're going to do our best to connect people. We're looking to invest, as I mentioned, into bathrooms and look at non-binary and adult changing tables. These are two ideas that weren't on our radar. And as I mentioned, it's only through conversations with others that you can really learn and grow. Just in simple conversations, people open my eyes to the need for improved bathrooms. You know when the bathroom needs to be improved in general, but someone shared a story about the need for adult changing tables and the need that they came across where they actually had to use their van to change an adult or an older child because what we had that was technically accessible didn't work. And that's a relatively small change we can make. But it wasn't until that conversation that it was really on my radar a lot more than it should have been. So we're always excited to learn more and make those changes. And I promise, as we're renovating these bathrooms, you're going to see more and more of those things happening. Continue to develop strong relationships for improved programming to diverse audiences of all abilities. As we mentioned before with the zoo and the School of the Deaf, there's great opportunities out there to partner, to share our resources and to learn from each other. And we're excited to do just that. And the last one is this EDA grant. That's the Economic Development Administration. We're in the running for a $4 million grant that would allow us to look at all of our campgrounds and our boat ramp areas to identify opportunities for growth, improvement, and accessibility. So we're excited to get that planning grant. It looks optimistic that we will. And if that grant goes through, it's a great step for the work that we need to do in all of our campgrounds and our boat rental areas and our boat ramps. Again, another exciting component that's coming up relatively shortly. Now, I wanted to make sure to touch on things that we can do to help as well. We have a group of planners within our system that are great at what they do. And we have wonderful resources within parks that can identify recreational deserts or can help with community planning. But the biggest thing I think we can do is through our Outdoor Recreation Parks and Trails grant. We call it ORPT. This is a grant that is available to municipalities and counties. The mission is to provide needed close to home outdoor recreational opportunities. So anyone that is a municipality or county park system is eligible for these funds at a matching rate. The match is 50%, but depending on the level of, or the level of how it could serve underserved communities, it could go up to 75%. So this is a great opportunity for our county parks, our city parks that want to do more work and to improve accessibility to apply for this grant and have anywhere from 50 to 75% of the funds covered through the grant process. Since 1988, we gave $31 million in matching grant assistance. It's a great opportunity to do this. So typically this is used for playgrounds, pathways. It could be used to purchase property, but the door's pretty open. It's written in a way that it's pretty flexible and can be utilized for multiple accessibility projects throughout. So if you have a project, whether you're with the county or city, or if you have a project that you're interested in and you want to share that with the county and city, we can work with them to potentially receive these grant funds and improve locations that are either already developed or creating new services in recreational deserts to connect more people to the park system and improve the health of our communities, which is critical. To determine the underserved community component of this, we utilize the CDC Social Vulnerability Index, which looks at social economics, household composition, race, ethnicity, language, and housing and transportation. We are also looking at other elements to expand that as well. We want to help people connect to our parks And again, we're always open to look at ways to doing just that. Now, how to help. Like I mentioned with the non-binary bathrooms and adult changing tables, the best way that we can learn is from each other. So share your ideas and thoughts. Whenever we have an event that's coming up, or we are at a meeting, or you just come across one of our parks and you learn something, or feel like there's a way to improve it, please reach out to us, connect with us, and give us your ideas. We are always open to those thoughts. Identify partnership opportunities. There are so many great organizations out there that are willing to help or share their expertise. Please don't be shy. We have a borrow a bike program that is at Cape Henlope and Bellevue and Trap Pond State Park that are run by the Friends groups or operates from the Friends groups. Up at Bellevue, they actually have trikes that are available to use. That'd be a great thing to expand to our other parks. It's a great partnership that we can create and find a way to make that happen so people of varying abilities can enjoy our wonderful trail system. Volunteer your services. So as you're coming to your parks, take note, as I mentioned, let us know what you see, what you're doing, reach out and see how you can help. We have wonderful friends groups at each park. They're always looking for new members, and those members have great input into what's going on at the park. They're a great source of not only fundraising, but also receiving support through legislation, and also have a great connection with the parks to kind of share what their thoughts are. So look at different ways that you can volunteer your services to help our parks out, or to let us know what we can do to improve it. And then fill out your surveys. There's a great opportunity at the end of this to do survey, but also anytime we have an event going on, if you're part of a camp out, you utilize our park in any way, go to a program, we have survey opportunities where we can gather information from you, learn a little bit more about our programs and how we did, but there's always an open section that allows you to tell what you felt and how we can improve our services. So I think those are all great ways that you can help do us a favor and improve the services that we provide, and make us a better park system. I think that ends my session. And I think, Victor, it looks like we have some time that we could do the video if you want, or we can open up to questions, whichever you prefer.
I think because we have a number of questions, Matthew, it may make the best sense to start in on the questions. And then if we have time toward the end, we can always go to the video, okay?
No problem. And that video is online, so it's easy to see. I wanted to get to the next slide just so you have my contact information for anyone that needs to contact me directly or wishes to contact me further. I'll let that up for a little bit.
Matthew, thank you so much for taking us through the parks. And as I said, we do have a number of questions, so let's get to as many of them as we can. First one is, do you have at least some sites personnel to help people who are visually impaired? And if so, what kinds of assistance might be available for visitors who are visually impaired?
So a lot of it depends on what you're looking for. A lot of our parks obviously have staff available to assist in any form they can. If there's a specific thing you're looking for, the best thing to do would be to reach out to the parks to figure out what we can do to help your visit and to make it more enjoyable.
Another question, is there any way to get bicycles built for two people? It would make utilizing the trails so much easier for people with younger kids.
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity. Many of our parks like Cape Henlope and up north around White Clay have bike shops. Our friends groups are the ones that provide the Borrow a Bike program at a few locations. They sometimes will purchase bikes, sometimes they work with donations, but they're always willing to look at ways to improve that. Some of them have, especially when it's more related to kids, they have the kid seat on the back, or they have the trailer that pulls behind. But I think there's definitely opportunities to improve the offerings throughout. And even, like I said, working with the local businesses that can provide those services is also a great opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. Just having a lot of questions coming in, so just trying to field and review them in real time here. Are there opportunities available to have special needs individuals volunteer for work experience?
Yeah, I think there's great opportunities throughout. We have online, if you search volunteer, destateparks.com, and then search for volunteer, we have an entire section on the different ways that you can volunteer. But also it has a link that you can connect to us and share what you're looking to do. And then each park has a volunteer manager assigned to them that can help coordinate any efforts or arrange for volunteering activity throughout their parks.
Another person says that love the plan to get changing tables to help individuals that are older, and the person suggests that these are contained in closed private bathrooms.
Yeah, so it's interesting. When this came up, I sent an email. The person that shared this was interested in Cape Henlopen. And unfortunately, a lot of our bathrooms at Cape Henlopen are older models and have their challenges. And I shared with the staff, I wanted them to look at this opportunity. The challenge is, even though they were built to be accessible, when you add that adult changing table, it almost creates a pinch point and it's too tight. So even though you could fit it in, it's not necessarily the best. So a lot of these are going to take some time to really figure out the new layout, and you're literally moving stalls to make the room necessary. But I think as we design new bathrooms, especially, I think that's a great addition and a great comment that we need to take into account.
Do any of the playgrounds in the parks have accessible swings for wheelchairs?
That's a great question. I have to look at that. I know we're in the process of upgrading some of our playgrounds. I'm not sure if Can Do Playground, I believe it does have one for a wheelchair, but that is something we're looking to expand in throughout the state. So I don't think we have many right now. Again, that is a great project that I'll put on our radar and our staff's radar, but also it's a great opportunity for our friends groups to help us fundraise for pieces of equipment that can easily be added on to our existing playgrounds. That's a little tweak that can be made pretty easily. You're purchasing that equipment, but it's not like you have to redesign the whole playground for that. So I'll definitely make note of that and see what we can do to add those.
Okay. A few years ago, there was a plan for Brandywine Creek State Park to pave the path along the Brandywine from Rockland Road to Thompson Bridge to improve accessibility. Some sections are paved, but not the entire length. Where does that plan now stand?
Yeah, so that was an interesting one. Like anything, you have pros and cons, people that love it, people that are not a fan of it. We are moving forward with that. We are in the process of finalizing the trail master plan, and we're identifying that as the primary goal for that plan. I would expect that would occur this coming year with a paved connection between Thompson Station all the way over.
What is the process to avail yourself of beach wheelchairs? Is this something that is first come, first served, or reservation required?
It's first come, first serve. You call the park office and let them know that you're interested in that. They can identify where they are located and then make arrangements for you to have access to them. But they are first come, first serve. It's another one that we could really continue to work on expanding the number that we have. It's just an interest that a lot of our visitors have and a need we have. So I think growing that number would be beneficial as well.
Would you consider a Braille addition to the storybook trail you mentioned?
Yeah, I think that's something that we can do pretty easily too. We have a couple storybook trails that are being discussed. I can work with the park and see what we can do with the existing ones to add that component, but I think that's a great suggestion.
The accessible kayak dock is a great idea. Will this be installed at Lums Pond, both boat areas, launch area, and rental beach?
Yeah, so the plan is we're renovating some of the docks at Lums Pond that just need to be replaced at the boat rental area. The long term, as we replace that section, the remaining section will be to have an accessible kayak launch there. We're working on a courtesy dock on the boat ramp area that should be going in the next year and a half or two. And with that one, same thing. It'd be nice. We're trying to decide whether we add it onto the courtesy dock or we have another launch area that we can have an easier accessible launch from. That would be to the side of it. But the intent is to have it at both.
Well, what's the best way for anyone in the disability community to give state parks input on accessibility now or in the future? And is there still an opportunity for the public to suggest improvements for your Project 75 initiative?
Yeah, we are open. So when we did the Project 75 and even the strategic plan, we have set people that are responsible for managing or at least kind of guiding that direction. But many times we are empowering our staff and the leadership in certain areas like programming to be creative with their staff and figure out what are great ideas that they would like to see as part of these improvements. There's not necessarily a direct way to give input, I would say. Obviously, through the survey that you're getting, you're welcome to put any information on that. I can put my contact information back up. You can reach out directly to me and I can share that information as well to different areas or sections, but 100% we are not locked in at what the 75 amenities are going to be or what the next step in accessibility are. We obviously evaluate that on every project, but if there are great opportunities or great additions that you have, we'd love to hear from you and see what we can do to make it happen.
What other accessibility improvements do you or others connected to parks accessibility wish could be part of Project 75, but that need to be put off because of funding or other issues? Or put another way, when Project 75 ends, what will be the obvious big ticket or big needs items that remain for Delaware parks on accessibility?
Yeah, so two answers here. I think overall, I mentioned it, bathrooms. I mean, when it comes down to it, if you're coming to our park, it's not the glamorous, but bathrooms are critical to all of our users. So there's some areas that we don't have. Herring Point, I saw a message about Gordon's Pond area and Herring Point don't even have bathrooms at Cape Henlopen. So we use portable toilets. They work, but they're not ideal. And then our existing bathrooms throughout the state, there are a number of them that need to be renovated. I would say that's the biggest need. And it's not a wow factor. It's not your ribbon cutting typical thing, but critical to what we do. Everybody loves a clean bathroom. And from an accessibility standpoint, that is a priority that we have and we're evaluating. So even if we don't get to it necessarily with the 75, it's something that we're always evaluating and looking at ways we can improve. The other one that's a really hefty one, and it works for now, is the Cape Henlopen Fishing Pier. It's one of the most popular fishing piers, accessible, great location, great fishing, but it's a World War II pier. Literally, there were surrenders that ships were brought in and surrendered at that pier, which great history, hard to manage and upkeep. And we do Band-Aids on that, pretty hefty Band-Aids on a regular basis. At some point, we need to figure out what that next step is. I don't want that pier to go away and we lose that fishing opportunity for accessible fishing. So we need to figure out whether it's rebuilding the pier there or a new location. But I think that would be a great loss for everybody for fishing, and one that is just a really big price tag that we'd have to figure out.
We're approaching the top of the hour, but we'll go just a few minutes past to try and accommodate a few more questions. The Gordon's Pond Trail at Cape Henlopen is wonderful and well used. Thank you. But is there any thought about the need to widen the raised bridge section when biking and pulling an individual in a bike trailer meeting oncoming traffic is a very tight squeeze?
Yes. The answer is yes. We are aware that that is a very popular and busy trail. And even though it's at a width that allows passing, we also know like having even a child that's not the best at biking, it's a little unnerving. So we actually have funding for a feasibility study to evaluate the different options to widen a component of that trail, especially the elevated part with the sides. It could be a challenge. We want to see if the structure that's in place can allow us to widen it without having to impact the marshes, or if we would need additional footings and pilings to widen it appropriately. But right now we're doing a feasibility study on what our options are and what it would consist of.
What low-cost accessibility improvement projects can localities undertake with their parks, even if they can't, say, in the near term, secure those ORPT grants?
I think, if you look at a lot of our city and county parks, we have a great park system. And I think that's the beauty of Delaware. There's not territory. We all want to succeed and we all want the best. So we work well together. I think the biggest thing is one, identifying what our deserts are. When I say recreational desert, it's what are those areas that communities just don't have connections to as they should. And then let's build those connections. Like, again, it's not about territory. So if it's a trail that connects a state park to a city park to a county park, we all win and we all celebrate that. Smaller scale, I think accessible playground elements are a huge win, and bathroom needs are the biggest thing that we can do. There's some small things, just because you need accessibility doesn't mean you have to pave something. So crushed stone many times will work to get people to the picnic area, to the bathroom, to these areas of interest. And those are relatively cheap to handle and manage, and much more accomplishable for organizations that may not have the big pockets to accomplish larger scale projects.
And how is transportation, or how has transportation, everything from public transit to parking, been considered in your planning process insofar as accessibility is concerned?
Yeah, great question. So, oddly enough, public transportation does not come into parks very often. We are working closely to expand that and broaden that. So certain areas near the zoo, for example, the drop off isn't very close. So how can we improve those components to make it improved? Down at Fenwick Island and Delaware Seashore, we're looking at actually having a bus stop right within our park. So, we have capacity issues, especially at the parks down south. So we need to look at public components. We have plenty of beach in many cases, or plenty of amenities, but we don't have enough parking. So instead of just broadening our parking, it's great to look at these opportunities to improve public transportation or other partnerships that would allow people to come visit our parks, easy drop off, accessible connection to our facilities. And that way it minimizes the impact and the need for additional parking. So certain parks, we're definitely taking that on, and we need to continue to look at that throughout.
And last question, and then we will wrap up our program today. What does Delaware Parks offer the public in the way of accessible equipment rentals, from boats to fishing rods, or in the way of instruction from golf to trekking to rock climbing for people of various disabilities?
Yeah, great question, and one that we need to work on for sure. So we don't rent a ton of equipment, so very minimal on that. We do a variety of programs, and our goal is to meet the needs of our visitors for those programs. So if we have a fishing program and there's someone that reaches out and they have certain needs that needs to be on our radar, Our staff works closely with those families to see what we can accomplish and to support. We also, in certain areas, will work with organizations that are better equipped to do those lessons or provide that services. And then we can work out a deal or work out a relationship where those services can be provided. But it's definitely an area that we want to continue to grow. I know our interpretive team are always looking for trainings and workshops that they can broaden their skills and their staff skills to work with various groups and provide as much services as we can. But we are committed and always interested to kind of problem solve or figure out what we need to connect people to those resources.
Okay, thank you. I want to remind everyone who has joined us today that at the conclusion of our program, which will be in just a moment, we will be sending you a survey, which is very brief. We ask you to complete it and return it to us today. And I want to thank you, Matthew, again, for joining us today and providing us with this wealth of information about everything that the parks are doing to make what we have here in Delaware more accessible to people with disabilities. And I want to thank everyone who has joined us to listen in to today's program. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you.